I got this multi-keyboard set up already. It's got a few free synths put in here. AS Watches Labs, which looks like this. And it's got a whole bunch of very nice sample bass sounds that come with it. And it's free. Odin 2, which is a formidable thing and can overload your CPU with some of the patches. So they can get pretty heavy. So doing like 5 notes can really overload, but that's okay. You can do a lot of lightweight things too. It just has that capability of being up there with Diva in terms of CPU hogitis. But it's just because it's capable of doing multi-voice sounds. And Surge, which is getting a lot of attention from people, and you can skin it in various ways, and it's incredibly powerful. And good old Podolsky and Tyrell from Yuhi are also free. And I'll have the links to all of those in the email that you guys will receive, and also in the post at Cantabile. And I got kind of a basic setup here with some instances where it's just a single keyboard going to a single sound. This is an example of Labs. And the MPK 249 playing Surge. The Elise is playing a hardware synth. And that's going to the stereo tool, which is also free from Flux. Allows you to position mono items all over the stereo field very nicely and bring in different things. And yeah, it's just very powerful. And it gives you that nice display of your stuff. At the main keyboard, also doing Labs at the moment, but the idea was to also show off how you can layer stuff. Okay, now since this is important when we get to the part about recording, I wanted to have a few layered items and a few disabled items. So here I have some items that are enabled and some that are disabled. I've gone in and I've created these output channels that I can output my VSTs to. And and I haven't assigned them to these yet, and I've already got a couple that have assignments. Of course, you can go to your song and right click and say create copy and make that your second song that's going to use the same basic setup. So now I can go ahead and I can enable Podolsky and Tyrell and use them instead of Surge and Odin, and just re-point my things and point this over. Yeah, that's already going to got this heavy-duty layered sound going on here. And so that should sound substantially different. There's a lot of stereo going on there. And not much stereo going on there. That's just a TX81C. So you get the idea. I'm mainly trying to point out that I can create something sort of like states by making copies and create copy and then create another copy with a different arrangement. Because I'm always using the same synthesizers all the time and the same keyboards, I can quickly create just one basic template and make lots of copies with changes in them. Okay. Now then, let's visit the recordings tab. Now, normally you would go in here and you would create a new set, and I've got many items showing up here, many more than I even need to show. Now, if you've got that situation where you've got a lot of objects appearing that you usually typically don't use in every single song, you can go in and open up the setting for this particular instance and start unchecking the things that you don't use, like all of these VEP, Vienna Ensemble Pro items that I'm not using. Just uncheck them. Machine Jam I'm not using. I'm not using my 225. So I can get rid of the keyboard inputs that I'm not going to record the MIDI from. I'm not using my wave station at the moment, so I can get rid of those. So you get the idea. Once you've unchecked them, I'm not using the BFC. And then when you save it, you'll see that this list suddenly doesn't have all those extra things that you weren't using. So that kind of shortens the list so you have a little bit less to select from. Also, you have your audio ports. This shows whatever is enabled in here. So if I double click this and uncheck the enabled and save, you'll see the Q mix disappears from the list. So that's a really good use of the enabled disabled thing. So you can go through and disable items that you're not using. I'm not using this, so I can just make it so it doesn't show and just make my recording list a little bit less cluttered. So you can have lots and lots of things assigned, put in here and not have to have them all appear in your ports to record is my main point. Now to get the VSTs to output, it's the whole purpose of these empty unassigned channels. You just create a bunch of them and they appear in the list over here for you to use and in the drop down when you say output out or stereo out, and they become selectable. And the only purpose they have is to appear in this list over here. So there they are. Okay, so we have this, and it's lessons set list, recordings. Well, gee, there's really not much to talk about. To tell the truth, I went ahead and I got into this whole thing was I was trying to show that you could, that when you're recording is going to end up in one of two formats, and it's based on how you set things up. If I do this thing where I have output channel 1 and output channel 2 going out to a recording, and I've got in a processing rack, I've got stuff going out also to output ports like this, my reverb. So you see, this is now a multi-track recording. That's the thing I was trying to point out. It's a multi-track recording. So that being the case, I'm going to be in a multi-track WAV file is my audio file, and a regular old media player is not going to be able to play that. If you need to make recordings that can go right out to your media player, then you've got to make sure that when you're selecting your audios, that you only select one. Like might be the stereo mix that I record, and uncheck everything else. Okay, unchecking all of these that I weren't going to use. But then you'll end up with a stereo recording that's a normal old WAV file and that you can drop right into your media player. However, if you use this for what its most powerful capabilities are, then you would do the multi-channel recording, and you will get, depending on the length, the size, depending on the file size, if it's below 2 gigs, it will be a regular WAV file. Do I have that right, or is it 4 gigabytes? Well, it's either 2 or 4 gigabytes. It does a transition to become a broadcast WAV file, a W64. Okay? And both of those have to be taken apart if they're multi-track. And to do that, you would then use Audacity. So since I've got a little recording all set up to go here, with that, and I'm doing, let's go back to what it was, recording most, here we go. Well, no, recording, default Shure mic, yeah. And we'll record the stereo mix, and we're getting up to 3, and I think I got 10. Yeah, and I don't need this, and I don't need this for this, and a whole lot of things I don't need. Yeah. See, I don't really need most of these. I just really need to grab these output channels. But I'm going to, by doing this, you'll see that there's empty tracks created. Also, all the MIDI tracks, there's 2 ways that you can do MIDI tracks and end up with multi-track MIDI recordings. One is to grab your inputs from your keyboards, and the other way is to grab them on the way out to the synths. Okay, now that's most useful when you're using a lot of hardware synthesizers. You just grab the out, audio out, but MIDI outputs. And so now you're grabbing it on the way out. Either way, I grab the inputs. In fact, I've always grabbed the inputs, so I don't even know that. I must admit, I don't know that much about the difference. If there's a use case for always using the outputs, unless it's something that you're going to be using things turned on or off. I'm not sure. Maybe it channelizes it. Maybe the output probably grabs the channelized ones after the filters and after the Omni thing. So that might be more useful for that kind of case. Anyway, let's go ahead and record a quick recording. All right, there's the recording. And there it is. And that's what it's called, a whole 13 seconds long. Show an Explorer. And it recorded a mid and a wave file. Okay, because it's obviously very short recording, so it's only 43 megs. All right, so let's bring it into the tool of choice, which I use, which is Audacity. And we're going to import audio. So let me just get my address here. Oops. And go up, File, Import, Audio.
You can paste it into the file name, then it will go to the folder.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. Here we are. Okay, this is nice and quick. So here's all the tracks that didn't have any content on them, but you can compare them to this side over here with what's enabled. They're audio tracks, so you go down to where the audio tracks start in, and you can see that anything that's checked is got a track made. So you can look over here on the left and say, oh, well, that's ESQM, I know that's stereo, get rid of those two. K5000 didn't have any inputs, get rid of those two. There's my microphone, Shure Beta, and I don't need that audio, get rid of it. And just keep on going down the list, because I know all of these were things I didn't record, so you just keep hitting the little X till you get down to where there is some sound. And those are the various inputs that you've been using. So you can solo them and take a listen. I believe it's coming. You heard that? So that sounded like it was a combo. So let's see where we are. Yes, that was the output to the analog 7/8 out to the ultralight for the recording. Okay, so that's what went out to my recording, these two. I don't necessarily need those. And I don't need the next one, the metronome. So here's where we begin with out channel 1, out channel 2, out channel 3. So now you can combine these and make stereo tracks out of them. I can get rid of the mutes on solo and make a stereo track and go change its name to what you know the name was. So let's go ahead, get the names so I can see them. So this was, I could just name it by the instrument and name this one by the instrument. Most likely the next one's channel 10 reverb. All right, so this is the reverb, I would imagine. And this is the so-called mix. Did I go to the right one? No. Yeah, there we go. So this will be reverb. And this would be mix. So now I can solo and see if I was right. Yeah, reverb. Individuals. Now what was this? Oh, that was the absence, yes. Okay, got it. So now I've got this thing and I can go ahead and do a multi-track multi-channel output. So for that, you go to File, Export, Multiple, Export Multiple. And you tell it where you want to put it. And I'll just put it in the root folder for that. I put numbers before mine so I know which track was which number. Tracks, overwrite existing files, on or off. I never have this existing files. You hit export and then you simply click OK several times. This is where you can decide you're not going to send certain ones, but we're sending them all. And it was that fast because that's so small in the vastly experimental folder. So now we've got these. And there they are, massive, absinthe, reverb, and mix. So now I can drop these into my DAW and do a multi-track mix, and where it's all beautiful and perfect. So although the house might have gotten a stereo or a mono output out to the house, now I've got this really nice stereo stems for each one of my instruments, and I can do a mix that's going to sound really nice to sell as CDs. They still use CDs, or to stream, or whatever. But there you go. That's the modus operandi, or whatever, that I use to get my stereo recordings. And I do this 5 times a week. and grab all my stuff as I'm doing my live stream improv concerts. And then I do this operation and make a mix, bring it in to my DAW, and make a nice mix. I never bother saving the project after I'm done doing the export. Just uses up space that I can replicate any time just by going through those steps again. I've never had to go back. But there you go. That's a quick demo of how that works. Now, of course, the media player item would only be able to play like the mix. So I could choose a file, set my list here, create a playlist, that's right. And add something and go find that. Let's see if I'm in the right thing. I am, by golly. And I could go find that vastly experimental item, pick up the mix, and because it's stereo, I'd be able to play it in here. Ta-da! Okay, a real piece of art too. It's short, but I think I could probably charge $3 for it at Bandcamp, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so, but there you have it. That was the overview of the recording that I wanted to give, and I hope you picked up at least 1 or 2 tips, even though I wasn't able to demonstrate the whole thing. So that, again, the steps are, if you don't already have a list here, recordings set a group, basically. It's like a group of setups. Then you create one, or you can open up a recent one that you've used. You can save one as and make changes to it. Then you start creating the new ones by hitting save and giving them names, and they'll show up down here in the list. And then you can make different types and do save, keep saving, and you'll get a new list. Like this could be, I could save this and call this bare bones. And now it'll show up in the list. And now it's part of this group. So since I only have one group at the moment. But I could use a save as and start creating a new group. And in fact, I'll go ahead and do that. You create a new group, save as, and I'll put it in there. Off. And now I can come in here and I can delete items because I'm in this group. So I can say, no, I want this out, etc. Here we go. And go ahead and save my group. And, well, it'll save with the file, with the set list and stuff. Okay. And go here, okay, I want to get it in my other group back again. Open recent, and go back to recordings. Neat, huh? All right, there's my procedure. Another thing I wanted to point out is that you can have, and I do have, in fact, MIDI items Here we go. The controllers. This is controllers only, and this is where we're starting to do a segue into the bindings thing, because this is done by using filters. I create a controllers only version simply by using filters. So you go up to options, MIDI ports, and you add one in the input port, and you give it the name you want. And in this case, it was 249 controllers. You tell it its channel. You tell it what unit it is, 249. Then you go into the MIDI filters, and I'm using the suppress notes. Well, actually, it's just the suppress is the filter. Suppress events. So what I do is I allow no notes, just by leaving that empty, and I suppress no controllers. So it's most straightforward thing, because it's nothing's checked and nothing's filled in. The whole secret to it is allow and suppress being selected for those items in that order. And then you end up with a controllers only unit, and you can make copies of this for different channels and that you can apply to different devices. So like for my MPK, I could just make it so only my bank 1 controllers were in this one, just by doing an allow and only putting in the controllers that were actually in my first bank, and like 18, 19, 20 I think it is, and up to 8 controllers and 8 knobs, and put in just bank 1 and call this one controllers bank 1. That way I could have 3 of these for all the 3 banks that are assigned to different synths, and have them already be filtered the way I want. So I won't ever be accidentally switching to the wrong bank and changing a synth I didn't want to change. And that then, of course, can be selected in the recording, so that you're just recording those controllers, the recorded controllers that you've selected. Okay. Well, we're in solo. Let's take a look at some of these bindings we've got available.
If you want to change a MIDI message into another kind of MIDI message, you have to use a filter and not a binding in solo.
I see.
So you don't have states, and you don't have this, so you can't change mappings, routings of MIDI messages using state, and configure a system on the fly, let's say. So one application was to, when you separate your input messages into pedals, volume pedals, let's say continuous pedals, notes, and so on, you have to do that using filters.
Gotcha. We'll take a look at the bindings that are available in solo.
I remember that the point that we noticed was that routing was easier using bindings.
Well, for sure, roots are easier to create using bindings in Performer, because everything can be bound to everything else. And it can all be seen on one page without having to dig through the various options that you have here and that you've got in here. You don't have to dig through these and note which ones have the changes. You have to look for your little green dots and say, okay, there's a green dot there. I know I added a filter.
Yeah.
But what did I do there?
In solo, what I have to do is to set up filters to block events, to block controllers, or allow them for each route.
Well,
which is
I'm in solo now, and I'm able to do quite a bit of filtering here with the Alesis QX49. I can tell that I only want the output of a channel, so I can channelize it. I can select controller, buttons, pitch bend, etc. I can select which controller I want. So I've got channelized, I've got the type of controller, and I've got the number of the controller. And so that's some filtering right off the top. But then what you can control once that's coming in, that's the other issue. Let's try a different controller, folks. Go back to learn. Okay, it's happy with my MPK. So it knows that that's this input on that, and I got that from learning. Create the binding here. And so that filled in automatically. Certain types of things, when you learn, they show a bunch of options, like this shows 2. And so I could be grabbing it from keys channel 1 or controllers, because this is coming in as 2 different items. Remember, I have one that's called just MP49 controllers only. So I could say, yeah, only when it's coming in through this do I want to see it, not through the keyboard, and do it that way. And that way it's going to grab that switch. And then decide where I'm going to send it. Here I got the absinthe and massive, so I can send it to various aspects of them. Now this is also where we were talking about doing the reverse thing, so let's get rid of this. This is like the sort of the manual way of doing it, but if it was a plugin that I was trying to get at, then the best route is to go into the plugin. And we noted that with this, the actual controllers are these guys. So you basically move your controller of choice. You go up here to create parameter binding. It asks you what you want to control it with. You move your thing and you're good to go. And now that controller controls that binding. So you can do that stuff with Solo. That's nice to know. That you can definitely hook up your controller right to your synths. And once you've used a controller on a synth parameter, you're not tied to having it be only that synth parameter. I could do the same one to delay or stereo or something and have it control simultaneously. So let's have it also control the attack. So same knob, move that first, create parameter binding, move the same knob. When I moved it, it reverted to what that had already been assigned to when I moved the controller. So you just have to set it back to attack in the bindings if you're going to try to do these kinds of shenanigans. So go back, jump into your bindings, and make it be corrected. Go to what you intended to go to, which was attack. Here we are. Okay, great. All right, let's go into some more complex ideas. Now let's go ahead and add a binding, going the old-fashioned way. Do it this one, 21. And it's a controller, so that's the same. So we'll pick a target. So again, we have the synthesizers. We have the engine itself. Now, does anyone under engine, has anyone ever used these things? You can use a switch in here to restart the engine, turn all sounds off, reset all. Ooh, pretty powerful. That would be a great little button use, I guess. And I see this as obsolete. I remember there was something about the way he used to start it. It was actually done as a fix for something else way back in like 2016 or 2017. But now this is the new restart engine approach. You can turn all your sounds off and reset all right from a button. That's nice. What else can we do? Execute a command. You can go pick a script or a UI command. You can do the master levels. Now that's always useful. Output gain, input gain. And so you do have access to all of these ports. Look, even those output channel ports, you can attack them individually for their master levels. This is the individual channel outs. Okay, so that's master levels. Media player, that's by index name, lets you control them based on how the media players, you can have a stack of them and get to them by different means. Media player 1, 2, 3, 4, and have a stack of them. That's useful for if you're stacking some backing tracks or drum track and have different tracks. So you can have selectable multi-track outputs. Metronome, I guess that's turned on and off. Let's see what they give us. Oh, increase tempo, decrease tempo. Wow, that's really nice. And this is in solo. It's quite a lot of power. up the tempo, or this just accesses the tempo. I'm not sure what that means versus increase, decrease.
It's probably if you do a knob to control it.
You think? Oh, I got to look. It automatically went to a controller. So let me go ahead and. What am I on? 21. Yeah, there we go. Sure enough.
Yep.
So the others, these are switches. Every time he puts the switch, it goes up. Push the other switch, it goes down. And volume, of course. Metronome. Metronome has a volume. Oh, of course.
Yep.
Right there. There it is. Up and down. Yes. But I'm always deafening myself during a show when I'm playing stupid metronomes, banging away at my eardrums. Okay, measure, beat, and balance. Oh.
Can you use your own sound for the metronome?
I don't
Seen
remember.
that.
Let's take a look. There it is. Metronome sounds. Classic, modern, custom. Or you can browse for a custom sound.
Right.
Right. So you can do custom. So again, let's go back to the bindings. I'd like to explore a little bit more stuff. We have that. We have navigation. Now that's a curious one. So this is letting me send key commands. So it's a translator of MIDI to key commands, isn't it? Because these are keys, keyboard keys. And I could then use, because where this is kind of cool, the MPK series actually has arrows on it that send key commands already on the left side. They call it DAW control. And it already sends up, down, left, right, and enter. But here, you've got this much larger selection than just control up, down, left, right, and enter. You've got all these others.
So you're sending those commands to Cantabile?
Yeah, no, you're right. It would be for
It's
this.
just like having a keyboard, I guess.
Yeah.
An ordinary keyboard, not a musical one.
Yeah. Well, let's try down, and for this button, then I've got assign no edge, and see what happens. Let's make sure I'm in the right one. Yeah, it just went down. Yep. Certainly does.
Okay.
Well, I can see where that could be pretty nifty. Okay, where would you all use that? Let's see. Well, you could go down to here and use the arrow keys to move around. Okay, back to the bindings. All right, so we do now know you can actually send key commands, and these are all the ones that are useful. Let's make it be home, and go down here and hit that button, and it takes me up to the top. All right, cool. And so it's navigate object by index name. Looks like you can do an inside a rack and still hit its index name. Oh, rack. Oh, this is inside of racks, is it? Is it?
You didn't select the rack in the first
You're right.
the first line.
There you go.
Maybe this is the one. Maybe do you need a rack?
Maybe you have to select song. When you click on rack, you can select the song in the bindings.
Okay.
If you click on the first line, you can select the song.
Oh, I got you. As a rack. And then select object 2. And look, and they've already showed me the listings if I do it that way. It showed me actually what I've named them. So now I select that, and I'm good to go. Here we go.
Yeah.
And this is another case where you don't want it to be infinity, because look, that's plus 14 dB. Very rarely would you ever want to do that. So you would come in here and make it be whatever your maximum really should have been. And I usually just say -6. I just did gain and a simple thing, but wet, dry, pan, fade. These are all next preset. Oh, that's nice. Learn finding which one it is. And it's firing, and it says next preset. All right, well, I'm curious. Ah, sure enough. Yep, it's working very nicely. Then we have another one be previous. Excellent. We have this, and this is set to a switch, but because it's a no edge, it doesn't care as long as there's a change. As long as there's a change of anything to anything, it reacts, sends. Select preset scaled. What on earth is that?
It does make sense if you have a controller that goes from 1 to 127 or 0 to 127. Then you might just want it to map that down to like 10 or 12
oh, yes.
presets.
Yes, that's for sure. And I suppose, yeah, source controller range down to 10, like you're saying. Whereas this is just next sec, okay. And then the indexed, I see, absolute versus these other modes. This doesn't let you do the scaling. The next type. Play, pause, stop. This would be, I would imagine, since they're talking at the absinthe, this might be for a built-in arpeggiator, for instance. I'd love to see a hold button if that was the case. Ah, I'm holding the note. Push the button, and I get that. So it's turning on and off some kind of a sequencer. Ah, neat. That's fantastic. Gosh, how many times I wished I could do that very thing and pull out the sequenced part of the controllers, where they're using an arpeggiator for a controller, and be able to turn it off momentarily. That is cool. And you can pause it too. Stop it. Play, pause, play, stop. Toggle. Color, eh? That's my color there. And turn it on and off. Why would I do that? To show the
Maybe
ones
to
I'm
see which
using?
one you're on.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I don't remember somebody asking for that.
You don't remember? Oh, you do remember
No, I
someone?
do.
Ah.
On this forum. Yeah.
That is a very, very neat
Might have been
concept.
Dave or Christian.
Let's go back to absinthe. Color. Where am I? Oh, object. Object. By index name. Wasn't that it? We picked song. Well, let's pick massive this time. And do color. Okay, that's great. That's a great idea. Have one button that could show me on the darn machine where on earth I am when I got this huge list, because that happens to me a lot. I have so many things up there. I don't know where on earth I am anymore. And it's on an object level, so it doesn't have to be a plugin. It can be a rack, like this guy here. So if I'm just looking, where on earth is my processing rack? I could change my object and make it be the processing rack. And now it'll show where on earth I hid that. So you can see that being pretty handy. All right, well, we're digging in. We are starting to dig in deep into this darn stuff. Okay, so what else? We have the plugins by index name, and again, we can pick song and then pick our plugins. And that leaves out the position, so it's not by object name. Got it. I see it shows anything that happens to be in the song in this list. So I can go directly selecting right from here without having to do it by index name, but this is always going to be the processing rack. And so I get all of these guys. Now a lot of this I would never use in this rack, but but some of it's in there. Gain. Processing rack's just for volume, and it contains the limiter and a reverb, final reverb. Oh, you can push a button to open up the rack editor. I can see where that would be really nice. So rather than even hunting around, have it open the rack editor. And I would want a button in this case. Pick this button up here. Just one tap and I'm in there. Bingo. That's very cool. Boy, the millions of times I could use that. I wonder if there's a way to close it then. How do you close it? Can you close the rack editor?
I think that is when the key presses come in handy, because then you can assign an escape to something and close it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Escape, sure enough. Okay, guys, let's try that one. Good idea. Okay, let's add a binding. And it's a switch, but we won't care about that. Wasn't that in navigation? Escape. Well, I know we're in like Flint Row. Bing. Out. Yes. So what else? Let's add another learned one. So you have rack by index name also. You can jump in. The recorder. Oh, of course. You want to turn on the recorder and turn it off. See what options they give us. Record, start, stop, turn on and off the auto record, and pin and unpin the last recording. Okay, that's useful. Set list. Load song by program, delayed, instant. So, oh yes, this is the one that people have really gone to town with, is in the set list, being able to load different songs, like by index. So you have a bunch of buttons that you can load in a song using that button. Directly, I would imagine. If it's by index, then it would be at the index, meaning where it appears by number in the set list. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be number 4, and be able to load it right in.
Thanks for a lot of good inspiration.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got started on it. We got rolling.
Yeah, really interesting.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Thanks, Terry.
All right.
It was interesting.
Thanks.
Yep.
Take care.
Sure.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yep. All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye.